You've tried controlling everything around you, but what if the answer is learning to control yourself? We suffer not from the world, but from our resistance to it. Peace begins the moment you stop needing circumstances to cooperate. Real strength is not in shouting louder, it's in becoming quiet within. When others panic, you will breathe. When others chase, you will wait, because you will understand that serenity is not passivity, it's presence, and presence is the highest form of power. Subscribe to our channel if you're ready to master your mind, and tell us, where are you watching from? You've tried controlling everything around you, but what if the answer is learning to control yourself? We suffer not from the world, but from our resistance to it. Peace begins the moment you stop needing circumstances to cooperate. Real strength is not in shouting louder, it's in becoming quiet within. When others panic, you will breathe. When others chase, you will wait, because you will understand that serenity is not passivity, it's presence, and presence is the highest form of power. Subscribe to our channel if you're ready to master your mind, and tell us, where are you watching from? Listen to me carefully. You fight battles no one sees, and the greatest of them is within your own mind. Every morning you wake to warfare, not the kind with swords and shields, the kind with thoughts that cut deeper than any blade, worries that siege your peace, fears that ambush your confidence, regrets that chase you like phantoms through the corridors of memory. You know this battlefield intimately. It's the place where you argue with conversations that ended yesterday, where you rehearse confrontations that may never come, where you punish yourself for mistakes that cannot be undone. This is the war within, and most men lose it before they even know they're fighting. But here's what most people don't understand. This war is not inevitable. It is chosen. Every moment of inner turmoil, every surge of anxiety, every spiral of overthinking, these are not things that happen to you. They are things you allow. They are positions you take in a battle you have the power to end. The emperor understands this. When Marcus Aurelius ruled the greatest empire the world had ever known, he faced external threats that would crush lesser men, barbarian invasions, political conspiracies, economic collapse, plague. Yet in his private writings, his greatest concern was not the barbarians at the gates. It was the barbarian in his own mind. He wrote to himself each night, not proclamations to the Senate, not battle plans for his generals, simple reminders about the nature of his own thoughts, because he knew that an emperor who cannot rule his own mind will never truly rule anything. The war within you has three fronts. First, the past. You replay failures like a broken record. You rehearse humiliations until they feel fresh. You carry guilt like armor that protects nothing and weighs everything down. Second, the future. You project disaster onto uncertainty. You catastrophize possibilities that exist only in your imagination. You suffer 1,000 deaths from threats that never materialize. Third, the present moment. Even here, even now, your mind creates conflict where none exists. You resist what is happening. You demand that reality conform to your preferences. You fight circumstances that cannot be changed and exhaust yourself in battles that cannot be won. This is where most people surrender. They think peace requires perfect conditions. They wait for life to cooperate before they allow themselves to be calm. They believe serenity is something the world grants, not something they create. But you will not make this mistake. You will recognize that every disturbing thought is a choice point. Every moment of agitation is an opportunity to remember who you are and what you control. You control your attention. You control your interpretation. You control your response. These three things, and nothing else. Everything beyond them belongs to fate, to circumstance, to forces greater than yourself. When you grasp this truth, truly grasp it, something extraordinary happens. The war begins to end, not through victory in the traditional sense, through understanding that most of the battles you've been fighting were never real. The enemy was never out there. It was the part of you that insisted it should be. The chaos was never in the world. It was in your resistance to the world as it is. Tomorrow, when you wake, you will face the same external pressures, the same demands, the same uncertainties. But you will meet them differently, because you will remember that the only war worth winning is the one between your higher self and your reactive mind. And in that war, my friend, you have already won. You simply need to stop fighting and claim your victory. You are not your emotions. You are the observer. And until you understand this distinction, you will remain prisoner to every passing storm that crosses the landscape of your mind. Watch a child in a tantrum. Watch an adult in road rage. Watch yourself in your last moment of fury. What you witness is not the person. It is the person possessed by reaction, enslaved by impulse, reduced to nothing more than a biological machine responding to stimulus. This is the enemy, not anger itself, not sadness itself, not fear itself. The enemy is the unconscious reaction that makes you believe you are these temporary states. Here's what most people don't understand. Between every trigger and every response lies a space. In that space lives your freedom. In that space lives your power. In that space, you can choose who you become. But first, you must see the enemy clearly. Reaction is not just emotional outburst. Reaction is any automatic response that bypasses your conscious choice. It's the anxiety that floods your system before you've assessed the actual threat. It's the resentment that poisons your peace over slights that matter to no one but you. It's the compulsive need to defend, to explain, to prove yourself right in conversations that ended hours ago. Marcus Aurelius knew this enemy intimately. As emperor, he was surrounded by flattery and criticism in equal measure. People praised him to get something. People attacked him to take something. Every day brought 1,000 opportunities to react, to take things personally, to let the circus of human behavior determine his inner state. Instead, he developed what philosophers call the discipline of assent. Before accepting any impression as true, before allowing any emotion to command his actions, he would pause. He would examine. He would ask, is this thought helpful? Is this feeling based on truth or interpretation? Does this reaction serve my highest self or my lowest impulse? This is the practice you must master. Not the suppression of emotion, that is, repression. And repression creates explosion, but the conscious observation of emotion, the ability to feel without becoming, to experience without being consumed. When someone insults you, you have a choice. You can react automatically, defend, attack, justify. Or you can observe. You can notice the heat rising in your chest. You can watch your mind create stories about their motives. You can see how your ego scrambles to protect itself, and in that observation you find something extraordinary. You find that you are not the anger. You are the awareness that notices anger. This changes everything. Because when you are not your emotions, you cannot be controlled by them. When you are not your thoughts, you cannot be imprisoned by them. When you are not your reactions, you become the conscious director of your own life. But let me ask you this. How many times today did you react without thinking? How many times did you speak before you considered your words? How many times did you let circumstance determine your state instead of letting your principles guide your response? The ancient Stoics had a practice. They would begin each day by reminding themselves of their mortality, not to be morbid, but to be present. Because when you remember that this day might be your last, you stop wasting energy on automatic reactions to meaningless provocations. Today, you will practice the art of the pause. Before you speak in anger, pause. Before you take offense, pause. Before you assume the worst, pause. In that pause, remember who you choose to be. In that pause, reclaim your power from the tyranny of impulse. The enemy is not the world. The enemy is your unconscious reaction to the world. And today, you begin to win this war. Control is an illusion. The more you chase it, the more peace escapes you. And the greatest freedom you will ever know comes from accepting this truth completely. Look around you. Look at your life. How much of your suffering comes from trying to control things that were never yours to control? How much of your anxiety springs from demanding that the world bend to your will? How much of your exhaustion comes from fighting battles that cannot be won? You cannot control the weather. You cannot control the traffic. You cannot control the economy. You cannot control your boss, your spouse, your children, your neighbors. You cannot control whether you get sick. You cannot control whether others like you. You cannot control the past. You cannot control the future. You cannot even control your next thought, yet you exhaust yourself trying. You rage against delays. You panic about possibilities. You argue with reality as if reality cares about your opinion. You make yourself miserable, demanding cooperation from a universe that operates by its own laws. This is the path of perpetual frustration. This is the road to madness. This is why most people live in quiet desperation, forever fighting a war. They can never win. But here's what most people don't understand. The moment you stop trying to control what you cannot control, you discover what you can control. And what you can control is everything that matters. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire that stretched from Britain to the Middle East. If anyone had reason to believe in control, it was him. Yet he wrote in his private journal, "Some things are up to us, and some things are not up to us." This was not the philosophy of a weak man. This was the wisdom of someone who understood the difference between power and force. Power comes from focusing your energy where it can make a difference. Force comes from wasting your energy where it cannot. Power comes from accepting reality and working with it. Force comes from denying reality and fighting against it. What can you control? 3 things, only 3 things. Your thoughts, your actions, your responses. Everything else, every single thing else, belongs to the realm of fate, your thoughts. You cannot control which thoughts arise, but you can control which thoughts you entertain. You cannot stop the first thought, but you can stop the second, third, and fourth. You cannot prevent disturbing ideas from visiting your mind, but you can refuse to let them make themselves at home. Your actions. You cannot control the outcomes of your actions, but you can control the actions themselves. You cannot guarantee success, but you can guarantee effort. You cannot control results, but you can control conduct. You cannot control whether people respond to your kindness, but you can control whether you are kind. Your responses. You cannot control what happens to you, but you can control what you make it mean. You cannot control circumstances, but you can control your interpretation of circumstances. You cannot control the events of your life, but you can control the story you tell about those events. This is where your power lives, not in manipulating the external world, but in mastering your internal world. Not in controlling outcomes, but in controlling your contribution to outcomes. When you truly grasp this, something miraculous happens. You stop fighting life and start flowing with it. You stop demanding and start accepting. You stop reacting and start responding. You stop being a victim of circumstance and start being the author of your experience. But let me ask you this. What are you trying to control right now that you need to release? What are you fighting that you need to accept? What are you forcing that you need to allow? The weather will do what the weather does. The traffic will flow as it flows. People will act as they act. The economy will fluctuate as it fluctuates. Your job is not to control these things. Your job is to maintain your peace in the presence of these things. Today, practice the discipline of release. When you catch yourself trying to control what you cannot control, pause, breathe, ask yourself, is this up to me or not up to me? If it's not up to you, let it go. If it is up to you, act with full commitment and then let the results go. This is the path to unshakable peace, not through controlling everything, but through controlling the only things that matter, your mind, your choices, and your character. And these 3 things, my friend, are more than enough. Events don't hurt you. Your interpretation of events hurts you. And until you understand this distinction, you will remain a slave to circumstances that have no power over you except the power you give them through your judgments. Right now, someone is celebrating the same type of event that would devastate you. Right now, someone is devastated by the same type of event that would energize you. The event is neutral. The meaning is chosen. The suffering or joy comes not from what happens, but from what you make what happens mean. This is the most liberating truth you will ever encounter, and the most terrifying. Because if your interpretations create your experience, then you are responsible for your suffering, not the world, not other people, not circumstances. But responsibility is not punishment. Responsibility is power. When you accept that your judgments create your emotional reality, you reclaim the ability to change that reality by changing those judgments. Marcus Aurelius faced plagues, wars, betrayals, and political chaos. By any objective measure, these were difficult circumstances. Yet in his private writings, he rarely complained about external events. Instead, he examined his interpretations of those events. He questioned his judgments. He challenged his assumptions. He knew that his peace depended not on what happened to him, but on what he made what happened to him mean. Consider your last moment of real disturbance. Trace it back to its source. Someone said something. Something happened. Something didn't happen. But between that event and your disturbance was a judgment, a story, an interpretation that you unconsciously accepted as truth. They disrespected me. This is unfair. I'm not good enough. This shouldn't be happening. People are idiots. Life is hard. These are not facts. These are judgments. And every judgment carries an emotional charge. Here's what most people don't understand. You can change your judgments. You can question your interpretations. You can examine the stories you tell yourself and ask, is this absolutely true? Is this helping me? Is this the only way to see this situation? When someone cuts you off in traffic, you can judge them as inconsiderate and feel anger. Or you can judge them as possibly having an emergency and feel compassion. Or you can make no judgment at all and feel nothing. The event is the same. The experience is entirely different. When you don't get the promotion, you can judge it as evidence of your inadequacy and feel despair. Or you can judge it as redirection toward something better and feel curious. Or you can judge it as information to improve and feel motivated. Same event, different meaning, different emotional reality. This is not positive thinking. This is not denial. This is the recognition that meaning is always assigned, never inherent. And since you are the one doing the assigning, you might as well assign meanings that serve your peace and growth rather than meanings that create suffering and stagnation. But let me ask you this. What story are you telling yourself right now that's causing you pain? What interpretation are you holding on to that's keeping you disturbed? What judgment are you making that's blocking your peace? The Stoics had a practice called the discipline of desire. They would examine their wants and ask, am I desiring what is up to me or what is not up to me? If it was not up to them, they would work to release that desire. If it was up to them, they would pursue it with full commitment. You can apply the same discipline to your judgments. When you catch yourself disturbed, ask, is this judgment necessary? Is this interpretation serving me? Is this story I'm telling myself creating peace or creating suffering? Most of the judgments that disturb you are optional. You don't have to label every delay as terrible. You don't have to interpret every criticism as an attack. You don't have to see every obstacle as evidence that life is against you. You can choose to see delays as opportunities for patience. You can choose to see criticism as information for improvement. You can choose to see obstacles as training for resilience. This is not naivety. This is wisdom. Because the interpretation that serves your growth and peace is always more useful than the interpretation that creates suffering and stagnation. Today, become aware of your judgments. Notice when you add meaning to neutral events. Question your interpretations. Challenge your assumptions. Remember that between every event and every emotion is a judgment, and that judgment is yours to choose. Your peace does not depend on perfect circumstances. Your peace depends on perfect understanding, the understanding that you are the author of your own experience through the judgments you make and the meanings you assign. Change your judgments. Change your life. Modern life is chaos by design. Every surface screams for your attention. Every device demands your focus. Every moment brings new information, new urgency, new reasons to be anywhere but here, doing anything but this, thinking about anything but now. This is not accidental. This is profitable. A distracted mind is a consuming mind. An agitated soul is a purchasing soul. Your restlessness has been monetized. Your anxiety has been weaponized. Your inability to be still has become someone else's wealth. But you are not powerless in this battle for your attention. You can choose stillness over stimulation. You can choose depth over distraction. You can choose presence over the endless pursuit of the next thing, the better thing, the thing that will finally make you happy. Stillness is not emptiness. Stillness is fullness. It is the fullness of being completely where you are, completely engaged with what is, completely present to this moment that will never come again. Marcus Aurelius, even as emperor, would retreat into solitude each evening. Not because he was antisocial, but because he understood that clarity comes from quiet. Wisdom emerges from withdrawal. Peace is found not in the noise of the world, but in the silence within yourself. Look at your life honestly. How much of your day is spent in genuine stillness? How much time do you spend without input, without entertainment, without the constant chatter of media and messaging? How often do you sit with yourself in silence without the need to be stimulated or distracted? Most people cannot tolerate 5 minutes alone with their own thoughts. They reach for their phone, they turn on music, they find something, anything, to fill the space that feels uncomfortable. But that discomfort is not emptiness. It is the presence of everything you've been avoiding through constant stimulation. In stillness, you discover what you really think. In quiet, you hear what you really feel. In solitude, you meet who you really are. And this meeting, uncomfortable as it may be initially, is where transformation begins. But here's what most people don't understand. Stillness is not passivity. Stillness is power. From stillness comes clarity. From silence comes wisdom. From withdrawal comes strength. The person who can be still in a chaotic world has access to resources that the constantly stimulated person never discovers. When your mind is quiet, you can hear solutions. When your emotions are calm, you can see opportunities. When your attention is focused, you can create value. But when you are constantly reacting to external stimulation, you live in a perpetual state of response rather than creation. The ancient philosophers knew this. They would begin each day with contemplation. They would end each day with reflection. They understood that wisdom is not gained through accumulating more information, but through processing the information you already have. Through understanding rather than knowing. Through depth rather than breadth. This is your challenge in a world designed to scatter your attention. You must become intentional about creating stillness. You must schedule silence as carefully as you schedule meetings. You must protect your solitude as fiercely as you protect your time. Start small. 5 minutes of sitting without input. 5 minutes of walking without a podcast. 5 minutes of driving without music. 5 minutes of eating without entertainment. 5 minutes of being without doing. Notice the resistance. Notice how your mind seeks distraction. Notice how uncomfortable it feels to be alone with yourself. This discomfort is not a problem to be solved. It is information to be processed. It is showing you how addicted you have become to external stimulation. But let me ask you this. What might you discover about yourself if you weren't constantly running from yourself? What solutions might emerge if you gave your mind space to think? What peace might you find if you stopped filling every moment with noise? In stillness, you remember who you are beneath all the roles you play. In quiet, you reconnect with your values beneath all the demands others place on you. In solitude, you rediscover your own voice beneath all the voices telling you who you should be. This is not escapism. This is engagement. Engagement with the most important conversation you will ever have, the conversation with yourself. This is not withdrawal from life. This is preparation for life, gathering the clarity and strength you need to engage fully and consciously with the world. Today, create one moment of genuine stillness. Turn off the devices, sit with yourself, breathe, be present to whatever arises without trying to fix it, change it, or escape from it. Let yourself be exactly where you are, exactly as you are. In that stillness, you will find something the stimulated world cannot provide: peace that does not depend on circumstances, clarity that cuts through confusion, and strength that emerges from your connection to something deeper than the surface chaos of modern life. Stillness is not the absence of activity. Stillness is the presence of awareness. And from that awareness comes everything you need to navigate this chaotic world. With unshakable inner peace, you must welcome your feelings without obeying them. This is the difference between emotional intelligence and emotional slavery. One makes you wise, the other makes you weak. Every day, emotions visit your consciousness like guests arriving at your door. Some are welcome: joy, contentment, love. Others are unwelcome: anger, fear, sadness. But welcome or not, they come. And when they arrive, you have a choice. Will you be the host who maintains composure or the servant who surrenders control? Most people become servants to their emotions. When anger knocks, they fling open the door and let it rampage through their house. When fear visits, they hide and let it make all their decisions. When sadness comes calling, they hand over the pie keys and let it redecorate their entire inner world. But you are not your emotions. You are the awareness that observes emotions. You are the space in which emotions arise and pass away. You are the host, not the guest. And as host, you maintain authority over your inner domain. Marcus Aurelius understood this principle deeply. As emperor, he faced daily provocations that would have sent lesser men into fits of rage. Senators who betrayed him, generals who disappointed him, citizens who criticized him. Yet, in his personal writings, we see not a man controlled by his emotions, but a man who acknowledged his emotions while maintaining his dignity. He wrote, "How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does." This was not emotional suppression. This was emotional wisdom, the wisdom to feel without being consumed, to experience without being controlled. Here's what most people don't understand. Emotions are information, not commands. They tell you something about your current state, your unmet needs, your unconscious beliefs, but they do not tell you what you must do. They inform. They do not control. When you feel angry, the emotion is telling you that something feels unjust or threatening. It is not telling you to lash out. When you feel afraid, the emotion is telling you that something feels dangerous. It is not telling you to run or freeze. When you feel sad, the emotion is telling you that something feels lost. It is not telling you to despair. You can acknowledge the information without obeying the impulse. You can thank the emotion for its message without letting it dictate your actions. You can be gracious host to whatever feelings arise while maintaining your role as the conscious director of your life. This requires practice. When strong emotions visit, your instinct is to either fight them or surrender to them. Fighting creates internal war. Surrendering creates external chaos. But there is a third option: witnessing. When anger arrives, you can witness it. Notice the heat in your chest. Notice the tension in your jaw. Notice the stories your mind creates to justify the feeling. Observe it all with curious detachment, like a scientist studying an interesting phenomenon. When fear visits, you can witness it. Notice the quickening of your pulse. Notice the constriction in your breathing. Notice the catastrophic scenarios your imagination constructs. Watch it all with compassionate awareness, like a parent observing a frightened child. When sadness comes calling, you can witness it. Notice the heaviness in your heart. Notice the tears that want to flow. Notice the memories and regrets that surface. See it all with gentle acceptance, like a friend sitting with someone in grief. In witnessing, you create space between yourself and the emotion. In that space, you remember your power to choose your response. In that space, you reclaim your authority as the conscious host of your inner experience. But let me ask you this. Which emotions do you let rule your life? Which feelings do you obey without question? Which moods do you allow to make your decisions for you? Today, practice the art of hosting. When strong emotions arise, welcome them without surrendering to them. Say internally, I notice anger is visiting. I observe that fear is here. I see that sadness has arrived. Name the guest, but remember who owns the house. This is not emotional numbness. This is emotional mastery. Not the suppression of feelings, but the conscious relationship with feelings. Not the denial of your humanity, but the full expression of your wisdom. The enlightened person is not someone who never feels disturbing emotions. The enlightened person is someone who feels all emotions while being enslaved by none. Who experiences the full range of human feeling while maintaining the dignity of conscious choice. Your emotions are honored guests in the house of your consciousness. Treat them with respect, listen to their messages, appreciate their visits. But never forget that you are the host. You set the boundaries, you make the rules. You decide how long they stay and how much influence they have. Welcome all emotions. Obey none. This is the path to emotional freedom and unshakable inner peace. Your body knows peace even when your mind has forgotten it, and the bridge between mental chaos and physical calm is as close as your next breath. You breathe approximately 20,000 times each day. 20,000 opportunities to return to the present moment. 20,000 chances to remember that you are alive, that you are here, that you are safe enough in this moment to simply be. Yet most of these breaths pass unnoticed, automatic, unconscious, missed opportunities for instant peace. This is the tragedy of modern existence. The solution to anxiety walks with you everywhere you go, yet you ignore it. The cure for overwhelm flows through you every few seconds, yet you remain unaware. The pathway to immediate calm lives within your chest, yet you look everywhere else for peace. Marcus Aurelius, in the midst of governing an empire and commanding armies, understood this simple truth. When faced with difficult decisions, he would pause. When confronted with challenging people, he would breathe. When overwhelmed by responsibilities, he would return to this most basic function of being alive. Your breath is your anchor. When your mind spirals into the future, your breath brings you back to now. When your thoughts drift into the past, your breath calls you home to the present. When your emotions threaten to overwhelm you, your breath offers immediate refuge. But here's what most people don't understand. There are two types of breathing: survival breathing and conscious breathing. Survival breathing keeps you alive. Conscious breathing keeps you sane. Survival breathing is shallow, rapid, unconscious. It lives in your chest, reacting to stress, matching the rhythm of your anxiety. When you're worried, it quickens. When you're afraid, it stutters. When you're angry, it becomes sharp and forced. Conscious breathing is deep, slow, intentional. It originates in your belly, independent of your mental state, creating the rhythm of your peace. When you're worried, it remains steady. When you're afraid, it stays strong. When you're angry, it becomes your path back to balance. The shift from survival breathing to conscious breathing is the shift from being controlled by life to being centered in life. It is the difference between reacting and responding, between anxiety and awareness, between chaos and calm. Watch how you breathe right now. Is it shallow or deep, fast or slow, confined to your chest or expanding your belly? Notice without judgment. This is simply information about your current state. Now take one conscious breath. Inhale slowly through your nose, letting your belly expand like a balloon filling with air. Pause for a moment at the top. Then exhale slowly through your mouth, letting your belly naturally contract. Notice how different this feels from your automatic breathing. This is your reset button. This is your emergency exit from mental spiral. This is your instant access to the peace that is always available beneath the surface turbulence of thought and emotion. But conscious breathing is not just for crisis moments. It is a practice, a discipline, a way of moving through life with greater presence and less reactivity. When you make conscious breathing a habit, you create a foundation of calm that external circumstances cannot shake. The ancient Stoics understood that the breath connects the voluntary and involuntary aspects of your existence. You cannot control your heartbeat, but you can control your breathing. You cannot directly control your thoughts, but you can influence them through your breath. You cannot command your emotions, but you can regulate them through conscious breathing. When someone triggers your anger, breathe consciously before you speak. When anxiety begins to build, breathe consciously before you react. When sadness threatens to overwhelm you, breathe consciously before you despair. Let your breath create the space you need to choose your response, rather than be controlled by your impulse. But let me ask you this: how often do you actually pay attention to your breathing? How many times today have you used your breath consciously to return to the present moment? How many opportunities for instant peace have you missed by breathing unconsciously? The breath is your most reliable teacher of presence. It is always happening now. Never in the past, never in the future, always in this moment. When you attend to your breath, you automatically attend to the present. When you breathe consciously, you live consciously. This is not complicated. This is not esoteric. This is not something you need to study for years to understand. Right now, as you process these words, you can take one conscious breath and immediately experience a shift in your state. You have carried the tool of instant peace with you your entire life. Today, make friends with your breath. Set reminders to breathe consciously throughout your day. Before difficult conversations, breathe. Before stressful tasks, breathe. Before sleep, breathe. Let your breath become your constant companion on the journey toward unshakable inner peace. Your breath is not just keeping you alive. It is keeping you sane. It is keeping you present. It is keeping you connected to the calm that exists beneath all circumstances. Use it. Trust it. Let it guide you home to yourself whenever you feel lost in the chaos of modern life. Breathe consciously. Live peacefully. Every moment before a reaction is a decision point. In that microsecond between trigger and response lives your entire freedom. In that pause between stimulus and action lies your power to choose who you become. Most people live their entire lives without ever finding this pause. They react automatically, speak impulsively, decide emotionally. They are like pinball machines, bouncing from one reaction to the next, controlled entirely by external forces, never realizing they have the power to stop the game and choose their next move consciously. But you are not most people. You will learn to find the pause. You will master the space between what happens to you and how you respond to what happens to you. You will become the conscious author of your own actions rather than the unconscious prisoner of your reactions. Marcus Aurelius, even in the heat of battle, even in the pressure of imperial decision-making, even in moments of personal betrayal and public criticism, would find this pause. He would step back from the immediacy of the moment and ask himself, what would the wise version of myself do here? What response would I be proud of tomorrow? What action serves my highest principles rather than my lowest impulses? This is the practice of the pause, the discipline of stepping back before stepping forward, the wisdom of thinking before acting, the strength of choosing your response rather than being controlled by your reactions. Here's what most people don't understand. The pause is not hesitation. The pause is preparation. It is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is not delay. It is deliberation. In the pause, you access your highest self. In the pause, you remember your values. In the pause, you reclaim your power. Without the pause, you are reactive. With the pause, you are responsive. Without the pause, you are controlled by circumstances. With the pause, you control your contribution to circumstances. Without the pause, you are at the mercy of your impulses. With the pause, you are the master of your choices. But the pause must be practiced. It does not happen automatically. Your brain is wired for survival, not wisdom. Your nervous system is designed for speed, not reflection. Your emotions want immediate expression, not conscious consideration. You must train yourself to interrupt these automatic patterns and create space for conscious choice. Start with small moments. When someone asks you a question, pause before answering. When you feel irritation rising, pause before speaking. When you have an impulse to check your phone, pause before reaching for it. When you want to defend yourself, pause before reacting. In each pause, ask yourself 3 questions. What am I feeling right now? What do I want to accomplish here? What response would serve my highest good and the highest good of all involved? These questions transform you from unconscious reactor to conscious actor. They shift you from emotional slave to emotional master. They move you from being controlled by the moment to being present to the moment. The pause is especially powerful in difficult conversations. When someone criticizes you, pause. When someone disagrees with you, pause. When someone attacks your character or your work, pause. In that pause, you remember that their words are about them, not about you. In that pause, you choose curiosity over defensiveness. In that pause, you access wisdom instead of ego. Without the pause, you defend automatically. You justify compulsively. You attack reflexively. With the pause, you listen deeply. You respond thoughtfully. You engage consciously. The pause transforms conflict into conversation, argument into understanding, reaction into response. But let me ask you this. How many relationships have you damaged through lack of pause? How many opportunities have you missed because you reacted too quickly? How many decisions do you regret because you acted on impulse rather than reflection? The pause is also crucial in decision-making. When faced with a choice, especially an important choice, pause. Do not decide from emotion. Do not choose from impulse. Do not act from pressure. Pause, breathe, reflect. Ask yourself, will I be proud of this decision a year from now? Does this choice align with my values? Am I deciding from fear or from wisdom? Many poor decisions come from failing to pause. You say yes when you mean no because you don't pause to consider your true feelings. You buy things you don't need because you don't pause to examine your motivations. You stay in situations that don't serve you because you don't pause to evaluate your options. The pause gives you access to your authentic self beneath the noise of social pressure, emotional reactivity, and unconscious conditioning. In the pause, you hear your own voice. In the pause, you remember what matters to you. In the pause, you choose based on your values rather than your impulses. This is not overthinking. This is conscious thinking. This is not paralysis by analysis. This is wisdom through reflection. The pause is brief, sometimes just a single conscious breath, but its impact is profound. Today, begin practicing the pause. Set an intention to find that space between trigger and response. When you feel the urge to react immediately, stop, breathe, ask yourself what response would serve your highest good. Then act from that place of conscious choice rather than unconscious reaction. Remember, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is your power to choose your response. In your response lies your growth and your freedom. The pause is how you claim that space. The pause is how you access that power. The pause is how you choose your growth and your freedom. Master the pause. Master your life. To be at peace, you must release what you never owned. Outcomes, opinions, control, these were never yours to possess. Your attachment to them is the source of your suffering. Your release of them is the path to your freedom. Detachment is not indifference. Detachment is engagement without enslavement. It is caring without clinging. It is loving without losing yourself. It is the ability to give your best effort while remaining peaceful about results you cannot control. Psalm 1:1. Most people misunderstand detachment. They think it means not caring, not trying, not feeling. But true detachment is the opposite. When you are not attached to outcomes, you can care more deeply. When you are not clinging to results, you can try more fully. When you are not enslaved by expectations, you can feel more authentically. Marcus Aurelius exemplified this principle. He cared deeply about the welfare of Rome, yet he was not attached to being remembered as a great emperor. He worked tirelessly for justice, yet he was not attached to seeing justice prevail in his lifetime. He loved his family intensely, yet he was not attached to controlling their choices or preventing their suffering. This is the paradox of detachment. The less you cling, the more you can love. The less you control, the more influence you have. The less you attach to outcomes, the more powerful your actions become. But here's what most people don't understand. Attachment is not love. Attachment is fear. When you are attached to someone, you do not love them freely. You love them fearfully. You love them with the constant worry of losing them. You love them with the need to control them. You love them with the expectation that they will make you happy. True love is detached love. It loves without possessing. It cares without controlling. It gives without expecting. It enjoys without clinging. This kind of love is not threatened by loss, because it knows that what is truly loved can never be lost. The same principle applies to your goals, your achievements, your reputation, your security. When you are attached to these things, you live in constant fear of losing them. You make decisions based on protecting them rather than expressing your highest self. You become their servant rather than their master. But when you hold these things lightly, when you pursue them without being possessed by them, you become free to act with courage, creativity, and authenticity. You can take risks because you are not afraid of losing what you never owned. You can be generous because you are not hoarding what cannot be kept. You can be present because you are not anxious about futures you cannot control. Detachment requires practice. Your mind is programmed to attach, to possess, to cling. Your ego wants to own outcomes, control people, and guarantee results. But these wants are impossible to fulfill and exhausting to pursue. Start with small attachments. Notice when you are clinging to plans that might change. Notice when you are attached to people's opinions of you. Notice when you are possessive of your time, your space, your routine. Practice loosening your grip. Practice holding things lightly. When your plans change, practice acceptance instead of resistance. When people disappoint you, practice understanding instead of resentment. When you don't get what you want, practice curiosity about what you need instead of anger about what you lack. But let me ask you this. What are you holding on to so tightly that it's cutting off circulation to your peace? What outcome are you so attached to that it's creating anxiety about the future? What person are you so possessive of that it's creating fear about loss? The discipline of detachment does not mean you stop caring. It means you care from a place of strength rather than weakness. It means you love from abundance rather than scarcity. It means you act from purpose rather than desperation. When you are detached from outcomes, you can commit fully to the process. When you are not possessive of people, you can love them unconditionally. When you are not clinging to security, you can act with courage. When you are not attached to being right, you can learn and grow. This is the ultimate freedom, the freedom from the need to control what cannot be controlled, to possess what cannot be possessed, to guarantee what cannot be guaranteed. This freedom allows you to engage fully with life while remaining peaceful about results. Today, practice the discipline of detachment. Choose one attachment that is causing you suffering and practice loosening your grip. Give your best effort, while releasing your need to control the outcome. Love fully while holding lightly. Care deeply while clinging not at all. Remember, you can have preferences without attachments. You can have goals without guarantees. You can have love without possession. This is the path to engagement without enslavement, caring without clinging, living without losing yourself. Master detachment, master peace. Worry lives in the future. Regret haunts the past. Peace is only found now. Yet you spend most of your life everywhere except where you actually are, in this moment, in this breath, in this irreplaceable instant that will never come again. Your mind is a time machine, constantly transporting you away from the only time that exists, now. It projects you into imaginary futures filled with imaginary problems. It drags you into unchangeable pasts filled with unchangeable mistakes. It does everything except help you be fully present to the life you are actually living. This is the great tragedy of human existence. You miss your life while thinking about your life. You miss the sunset while worrying about tomorrow's weather. You miss the conversation while rehearsing what you'll say next. You miss the meal while checking your phone. You miss the moment while living everywhere but the moment. Marcus Aurelius understood this tendency intimately. In his meditations, he repeatedly reminds himself to stay present. Very little is needed to make a happy life, he wrote. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. But thinking about life is not the same as living life. Analyzing the present is not the same as experiencing the present. The present moment is your only point of power. You cannot change the past. It exists only in memory. You cannot control the future. It exists only in imagination. You can only act now, choose now, love now, live now. Yet this is precisely where most people are least present. Here's what most people don't understand. The present moment is not just where life happens. It is where peace happens. Anxiety cannot exist in the present moment because anxiety is always about something that might happen. Depression cannot exist in the present moment because depression is always about something that did happen. Only presence can exist in the present moment, but presence requires practice. Your mind is conditioned to wander. Your attention is trained to scatter. Your awareness is habituated to anywhere but here. You must actively choose to be where you are when you are there. This is not easy in a world designed to fragment your attention. Every device demands your focus. Every notification pulls you away from now. Every screen offers an alternative to whatever you are currently experiencing. The present moment cannot compete with the excitement of digital distraction unless you choose to make it compelling through conscious attention. Start with your senses. Right now, as you absorb these words, what do you hear? What do you feel in your body? What do you smell? What is the quality of light around you? What textures are touching your skin? Your senses are always in the present moment. When you attend to them, you join them in the now. Use your breath as an anchor. Every inhale is happening now. Every exhale is happening now. When your mind drifts to yesterday's conversation or tomorrow's deadline, return to your breath. It will always bring you home to the present moment. Practice single tasking. When you eat, just eat. When you walk, just walk. When you listen, just listen. Give your full attention to whatever you are doing. This is not just more efficient, it is more alive. Life is not experienced in multitasking mode. Life is experienced in full presence mode. But let me ask you this. How much of today have you actually been present for? How many moments have you missed while thinking about other moments? How much life have you sacrificed to anxiety about the future or regret about the past? The past is gone. You cannot change what happened. You can learn from it, but you cannot relive it. The future is not yet here. You can prepare for it, but you cannot control it. The present is all you have. The present is all you ever have. The present is all anyone ever has. When you are fully present, problems shrink to their actual size rather than the inflated size your imagination gives them. When you are anchored in now, you stop creating suffering through mental time travel. When you are here, you discover that here is actually quite peaceful. The present moment is not always pleasant, but it is always manageable. You can handle what is actually happening right now. You cannot handle everything you imagine might happen or everything you regret that did happen, but you can handle this moment, this breath, this experience. Today, practice coming home to the present moment. Set reminders to ask yourself, where is my attention right now? Am I here or somewhere else? When you notice you've drifted into mental time travel, gently return to now. Return to your breath. Return to your senses. Return to the only time that exists. Remember, the present moment is not a stepping stone to somewhere else. It is the destination. It is where your life is happening. It is where your peace resides. It is where your power lives. Stop visiting the present moment and start living there. Be here now. This is not just advice. This is the entirety of the spiritual path. This is the secret to unshakable inner peace. This is how you anchor yourself in the only moment that matters. This one. Accepting reality does not mean giving up. It means facing what is with clarity and courage. This is how peace and power coexist. This is how you stop fighting battles that cannot be won and start winning battles that matter. Most people misunderstand acceptance. They think it means resignation, passivity, weakness. They believe that accepting a difficult situation means approving of it, endorsing it, or being content with it. But acceptance is not agreement. Acceptance is acknowledgement. It is seeing clearly what is actually true rather than what you wish were true. You cannot change what you do not accept. You cannot improve what you do not acknowledge. You cannot solve problems you refuse to see clearly. Denial is not strength. It is the enemy of strength. Acceptance is the foundation of all effective action. Marcus Aurelius faced realities that would crush most people. Plague that killed millions, wars that lasted years, betrayals by trusted allies, economic collapse, political chaos. Yet he did not waste energy denying these realities or demanding that they be different. He accepted them completely and then asked, given that this is true, what is the wise response? This is the power of acceptance. It frees up all the energy you waste fighting reality and redirects it toward responding to reality effectively. When you stop arguing with what is, you can start working with what is. When you stop resisting circumstances, you can start influencing them. But here's what most people don't understand. Acceptance is active, not passive. It is a conscious choice. To engage with truth rather than fantasy. It is the decision to deal with what is rather than what should be. It is the courage to face facts rather than hide behind wishful thinking. When you are diagnosed with an illness, acceptance means acknowledging the diagnosis completely so you can pursue treatment effectively. Denial would mean refusing to believe the diagnosis and therefore refusing to act. Acceptance leads to empowerment. Denial leads to deterioration. When a relationship ends, acceptance means acknowledging that it is over, so you can grieve properly and move forward constructively. Denial would mean clinging to false hope and preventing yourself from healing. Acceptance leads to recovery. Denial leads to prolonged suffering. When you lose a job, acceptance means acknowledging the loss completely so you can plan your next move strategically. Denial would mean refusing to face your new circumstances and therefore failing to adapt. Acceptance leads to opportunity. Denial leads to stagnation. This is not positive thinking. This is clear thinking. Positive thinking tries to convince you that negative realities don't exist. Clear thinking helps you see negative realities clearly, so you can respond to them wisely. Acceptance does not mean you like what is happening. It means you acknowledge what is happening. Acceptance does not mean you approve of injustice. It means you see injustice clearly, so you can fight it effectively. Acceptance does not mean you are content with suffering. It means you face suffering. Honestly, so you can address it skillfully. The Stoics called this principle the discipline of desire. They taught that you should want what happens to happen, not because everything that happens is good, but because wanting what happens to happen is the only sane response to a universe you cannot control. This does not make you passive. This makes you effective. When you accept what is, you stop wasting energy on impossible battles and start focusing energy on possible victories. When you acknowledge reality, you stop fighting phantoms and start addressing actual problems. But let me ask you this: what reality are you refusing to accept right now? What situation are you denying instead of addressing? What truth are you avoiding instead of facing? Your refusal to accept what is true is keeping you stuck. Your resistance to what has happened is preventing you from responding to what has happened. Today, practice radical acceptance of one situation you have been resisting. Stop demanding that it be different. Stop wishing it had never happened. Stop arguing with reality. Accept it completely. Then ask, given that this is true, what is my wisest response? Notice how this shift in perspective changes your relationship to the situation. When you stop fighting what is, you start working with what is. When you stop resisting circumstances, you start influencing them. When you stop denying reality, you start changing reality. Acceptance is not surrender to what is. Acceptance is engagement with what is. It is the foundation of all effective action, all genuine strength, all lasting change. You cannot build a solid life on the shifting sands of denial, but you can build an unshakable life on the bedrock of truth. Accept what is. Change what can be changed. Have the wisdom to know the difference. This is the path to both peace and power. This is how you stop being a victim of circumstances and start being a conscious participant in your own life. Accept, act, thrive. Life will not bend to your will, but it will shape you if you let it. This is the great secret of human development. Obstacles become the way. Resistance becomes refinement. Difficulty becomes strength. Not by fighting what comes, but by flowing with what comes and being transformed by it. You have been conditioned to resist difficulty, to avoid discomfort, to seek the path of least resistance. But this conditioning keeps you weak, fragile, unprepared for the inevitable challenges that define human existence. What you resist persists. What you avoid controls you. What you fight grows stronger, but what you embrace transforms you. What you accept teaches you. What you welcome refines you. This is the paradox of growth. The very things you want to avoid are the very things you need to become who you are meant to be. Marcus Aurelius understood this principle intimately. He did not see the challenges of leadership as burdens to be endured, but as opportunities to be embraced. Every difficult decision refined his judgment. Every betrayal deepened his wisdom. Every crisis strengthened his character. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is not masochism. This is realism. Life includes difficulty. Resistance is futile. You can spend your energy fighting what is inevitable, or you can spend your energy learning from what is inevitable. One approach leaves you exhausted and unchanged. The other leaves you stronger and wiser. Here's what most people don't understand. Your problems are not punishments. They are curriculums. Your obstacles are not enemies. They are teachers. Your difficulties are not evidence that life is against you. They are evidence that life is preparing you for something greater than your current capacity. Every challenge is asking you to grow. Every obstacle is inviting you to develop new skills. Every difficulty is offering you the chance to discover strength you didn't know you had. But you can only receive these gifts if you stop resisting the delivery system. When you resist, you suffer twice. Once from the actual difficulty, and once from your resistance to the difficulty. When you accept, you suffer only once from the actual difficulty. And often when you accept completely, you discover that the difficulty wasn't as difficult. As your resistance made it seem, this does not mean you become passive. This means you become fluid. Water does not resist the obstacles in its path. It flows around them, over them, through them. In the process, water carves canyons, moves mountains, shapes landscapes. This is the power of non-resistance combined. With persistent action, practice this fluidity with the small irritations of daily life. When traffic is slow, instead of resisting the delay, use it as an opportunity to practice patience. When technology fails, instead of fighting the frustration, use it as a chance to practice adaptability. When plans change, instead of resisting the uncertainty, use it as training for flexibility. Each small act of non-resistance builds your capacity for larger acts of acceptance. Each moment of flowing with circumstances, rather than fighting them, strengthens your ability to remain peaceful in chaos. Each choice to be refined by difficulty, rather than diminished by, it develops your resilience for future challenges. But let me ask you this. What are you currently resisting that you need to embrace? What difficulty are you fighting that you need to learn from? What obstacle are you avoiding that contains the exact lesson you need for your next level of growth? The diamond is created by pressure. The muscle is built by resistance. The character is forged by adversity. But none of these transformations happen if the raw material fights the process. The coal must surrender to become the diamond. The muscle must accept the stress to become stronger. You must embrace the difficulty to become wiser. This is not about seeking difficulty. This is about receiving difficulty skillfully when it comes. This is not about creating problems. This is about extracting wisdom from the problems that naturally arise. This is not about being grateful for suffering. This is about being teachable in the presence of suffering. Today, identify one area of resistance in your life, one situation you are fighting instead of flowing with, one difficulty you are avoiding instead of learning from. Choose to stop resisting and start refining. Choose to stop fighting and start flowing. Choose to let life shape you rather than demanding that you shape life. Remember, you cannot control what happens to you, but you can control what happens in you. You cannot prevent all difficulty, but you can profit from every difficulty. You cannot avoid all obstacles, but you can be refined by every obstacle. Resist nothing, refine everything. Let life be your teacher rather than your enemy. Let difficulty be your strengthener rather than your weakener. Let obstacles be your pathway rather than your prison. Flow with what comes. Be shaped by what comes. Be refined by what comes. This is how you turn every experience into growth, every challenge into strength, every obstacle into opportunity. This is the way of the wise. This is the path of the peaceful. This is how you transform resistance into refinement and difficulty into strength. What you say to yourself determines your state. Every thought is a conversation between you and you. Every internal narrative shapes your reality. Every voice in your head influences your emotions, your decisions, your entire experience of being alive. Yet most people have never taken conscious control of this internal dialogue. You talk to yourself all day long. You narrate your experiences. You comment on your performance. You predict your future. You analyze your past. You judge your worth. You evaluate your options. This internal commentary never stops. It only changes tone, volume, and subject matter. But here's what most people don't understand. This internal voice is not you. It is a tool you can learn to use consciously. It is not your master. It can become your servant. It is not your identity. It is an instrument of your awareness that you can tune, direct, and improve. Marcus Aurelius was perhaps history's greatest master of internal dialogue. His meditations are essentially a record of conscious self-talk, rational, compassionate, wise internal conversations designed to maintain perspective, strengthen character, and cultivate peace. He spoke to himself the way a loving teacher speaks to a dedicated student. Most people speak to themselves the way a harsh critic speaks to a disappointing performer. They focus on failures amplify fears, rehearse worst-case scenarios, and repeat. Negative judgments. They would never speak to a friend the way they speak to themselves. They would never accept from others the harsh commentary they accept from their own minds. This internal criticism creates a constant state of stress, anxiety, and self-doubt. When your own mind is your enemy, where can you find peace? When your own voice is your harshest critic, how can you build confidence? When your own thoughts undermine you, how can you succeed? The solution is not to stop thinking. The solution is to think consciously, to direct your internal dialogue intentionally, to choose the tone, content, and direction of your self-talk, to become the conscious author of your internal narrative rather than the unconscious victim of whatever thoughts arise. Start by becoming aware of your current internal dialogue. What tone does your inner voice use? Is it encouraging or discouraging? Is it rational or emotional? Is it helpful or harmful? Does it build you up or tear you down? Does it focus on possibilities or problems? Notice the patterns. Do you criticize yourself more than you encourage yourself? Do you focus more on what's wrong than what's right? Do you assume the worst about your abilities, your future, your worth? Do you replay failures more than you celebrate successes? Most people are shocked when they become aware of how negatively they speak to themselves. They realize they have been carrying on an internal dialogue that would destroy anyone's peace, confidence, and motivation. They see that their greatest enemy is not external circumstances, but their own internal commentary on those circumstances. But awareness creates choice. Once you notice your internal dialogue, you can begin to change it. You can consciously choose to speak to yourself with the same kindness you would show a good friend. You can intentionally focus on solutions rather than problems. You can deliberately emphasize your strengths rather than your weaknesses. This is not positive thinking. This is rational thinking. It is choosing thoughts that serve your growth rather than thoughts that sabotage your growth. It is selecting internal narratives that create peace rather than narratives that create agitation. It is directing your mental energy toward what helps rather than what hurts. Practice speaking to yourself with respect. When you make a mistake, respond with curiosity rather than criticism. Instead of, "I'm so stupid," try, "What can I learn from this?" When you face a challenge, respond with confidence rather than fear. Instead of, "I can't handle this," try, "I'll figure this out." But let me ask you this. How do you currently speak to yourself? Would you accept this tone from another person? Would you allow a friend to talk to you the way you talk to yourself? If not, why do you allow it from your own mind? Train your internal dialogue like you would train any skill. Catch negative self-talk and redirect it. Replace harsh criticism with gentle correction. Substitute fear-based projections with possibility-based exploration. Transform internal arguments into internal coaching. Remember that your subconscious mind believes what your conscious mind repeatedly tells it. If you constantly tell yourself you're not good enough, your subconscious will find evidence to support this belief. If you consistently tell yourself you're capable and worthy, your subconscious will find evidence to support this belief instead. Your internal dialogue is programming your reality. Make sure it's programming the reality you want to live in. Choose thoughts that create peace rather than thoughts that create suffering. Select narratives that empower rather than narratives that diminish. Direct your mental energy toward growth rather than toward self-sabotage. Today, become the conscious curator of your internal dialogue. Notice what you're saying to yourself. Question whether it's helpful. Choose to speak to yourself with the same kindness, encouragement, and wisdom you would offer someone you love. Your mind can be your greatest ally or your greatest enemy. The choice is yours. The conversation is yours. The narrative is yours. Make it a conversation worth having. Make it a narrative worth living. Peace is not spontaneous. It is engineered. It does not happen by accident. It is created by design. And the architecture of inner peace is built from the bricks of daily routine, the mortar of consistent practice, the foundation of disciplined habits that protect your clarity regardless of external chaos. Most people wait for peace to visit them. They hope that circumstances will align perfectly, that stress will disappear naturally, that serenity will arrive spontaneously. But peace is not a guest that drops by unexpectedly. Peace is a resident that must be invited to stay through the daily practices that make it feel at home. Your days are made of habits. Your habits create your state. Your state determines your experience. If your habits are chaotic, your state will be chaotic. If your habits are peaceful, your state will be peaceful. There is no mystery here. There is only cause and effect, choice and consequence, intention and result. Marcus Aurelius understood this principle completely. Despite governing an empire, commanding armies, and managing constant crises, he maintained unshakable inner peace through unwavering daily practices. He woke early for contemplation. He wrote in his journal each evening. He exercised regularly. He studied philosophy consistently. These were not optional activities. They were the fortress walls that protected his inner citadel. Your routine is your fortress. It protects you from the chaos of external circumstances. It guards your peace from the demands of others. It shields your clarity from the confusion of modern life. But this fortress must be built intentionally, maintained consistently, and defended vigilantly. Most people have routines, but they are unconscious routines. They scroll through social media first thing in the morning, filling their minds with other people's problems. They drink coffee to jolt themselves awake, instead of awakening naturally. They rush through their days without pauses for reflection. They collapse into bed exhausted, instead of ending the day with gratitude and planning. These unconscious routines create unconscious states. They generate anxiety instead of peace, reactivity instead of responsiveness, exhaustion instead of energy. They are not serving your highest good. They are serving your lowest impulses. But you can design conscious routines that serve your peace. You can create morning practices that start your day with clarity instead of chaos. You can establish evening rituals that end your day with gratitude instead of worry. You can build daily habits that strengthen your inner fortress instead of weakening your defenses. Start with the morning. How you begin your day determines how you experience your day. If you start with urgency, you will live with urgency. If you start with peace, you will live with peace. Create a morning routine that connects you to your center before you connect to the world. This might include meditation, journaling, reading, exercise, or simple quiet reflection. It might be as brief as 10 minutes or as long as an hour. The specific activities matter less than the intention. To begin each day consciously rather than reactively. To ground yourself in peace before engaging with chaos. End with the evening. How you conclude your day determines how you rest and how you prepare for tomorrow. If you end with screens and stimulation, you will carry that energy into your sleep. If you end with reflection and gratitude, you will carry that peace into your rest. Create an evening routine that processes the day's experiences and prepares your mind for restoration. This might include journaling about what you learned, expressing gratitude for what went well, or setting intentions for tomorrow. It creates closure for today and clarity for tomorrow. But let me ask you this. What does your current routine create? Peace or anxiety? Clarity or confusion? Energy or exhaustion? Are your daily habits serving your highest good or your lowest impulses? Your routine should include practices that strengthen each aspect of your well-being. Physical practices that maintain your body's health and energy. Mental practices that train your mind's focus and clarity. Emotional practices that process feelings and maintain balance. Spiritual practices that connect you to meaning and purpose. These don't need to be elaborate or time-consuming. 5 minutes of stretching, 5 minutes of breathing, 5 minutes of gratitude, 5 minutes of planning. Small practices done consistently create profound results over time. The key is consistency over intensity. A simple practice done daily is more powerful than an elaborate practice done occasionally. Your routine should be sustainable, realistic, and aligned with your actual schedule rather than your ideal schedule. Protect your routine like you would protect anything valuable. Don't let others' urgencies override your priorities. Don't let external chaos disrupt your internal practices. Don't let temporary convenience sabotage your long-term peace. Your routine is your refuge. It is the place you return to for stability. When life becomes unstable, it is the practice that maintains your center when everything around you is spinning. It is the fortress that protects your peace when the world tries to steal it. Today, begin designing your fortress of routine. Choose one morning practice and one evening practice. Start small, but start consistently. Build the daily habits that will protect your peace, strengthen your clarity, and maintain your inner stability regardless of external circumstances. Remember, you become what you repeatedly do. Excellence is not an act, but a habit. Peace is not an accident, but a practice. Build the routines that build the life you want to live. Time alone is not loneliness. It is leadership. It is not isolation. It is integration. It is not escape from life. It is preparation for life. The person who cannot be alone with themselves will never truly be present with others. The person who cannot find peace in solitude will never find peace in company. Most people fear solitude. They fill every moment with activity, every silence with noise, every pause with stimulation. They surround themselves with people, devices, entertainment, anything to avoid being alone with their own thoughts. But this fear of solitude is actually fear of themselves, fear of what they might discover in the silence. Yet solitude is where wisdom is born. It is where clarity emerges. It is where you process experiences, integrate learning, and prepare for challenges. It is where you separate your authentic voice from the chorus of other voices telling you who you should be and what you should want. Marcus Aurelius, despite being surrounded by advisors, generals, senators, and subjects, carved out time for solitude each day. He knew that the quality of his leadership depended on the quality of his inner life. He understood that to serve others effectively, he first had to know himself completely. And self-knowledge only comes in solitude. Solitude is not selfishness. It is self-care. Just as athletes need recovery time between training sessions, just as devices need charging time between uses, you need solitude time between social interactions. You need space to process, integrate, and restore. You need time to remember who you are when no one is watching. In solitude, you shed the masks you wear for others. You drop the performances you maintain in public. You release the tensions you accumulate in social situations. You return to your authentic self, not the person others expect you to be, but the person you actually are, beneath all the roles and responsibilities. This authentic self is your source of strength. It is where your real opinions live, where your true values reside, where your genuine desires emerge. But you can only access this authentic self in solitude. In company, you are always partly performing, partly adapting, partly conforming to social expectations. Solitude also provides perspective. When you are caught up in the drama of daily interactions, everything feels urgent, important, personal. But in solitude, you can step back and see the bigger picture. You can distinguish between what matters and what merely seems to matter. You can separate real problems from imaginary problems. Here's what most people don't understand. Solitude is not time away from life. It is time to prepare for life. It is not withdrawal from relationships. It is preparation for better relationships. When you are comfortable with yourself, you can be genuinely present with others. When you are at peace in solitude, you can contribute peace to company, but solitude must be practiced intentionally. It is not simply being physically alone. It is being mentally present with yourself. It is not just quiet time. It is conscious time. It is not passive waiting. It is active self-engagement. True solitude means turning off the devices, stepping away from entertainment, and sitting with whatever arises in the silence. It means facing your thoughts without distraction, feeling your emotions without numbing, experiencing your presence without enhancement. This can be uncomfortable initially. Your mind may race. Your emotions may intensify. Your discomfort with inactivity may surface. But this discomfort is not a problem. It is information. It is showing you how dependent you have become on external stimulation and how disconnected you have become from your inner life. But let me ask you this. When was the last time you spent significant time in genuine solitude? When did you last sit with yourself without entertainment, without goals, without distraction? How comfortable are you with your own company? Start small. 5 minutes of sitting quietly without input. 5 minutes of walking without podcasts. 5 minutes of eating without reading. Notice the resistance. Notice the urge to fill the space with something. This urge is showing you how much you have been running from yourself. Use solitude for reflection. What did you learn today? What challenged you? What are you grateful for? What do you want to do differently tomorrow? These questions can only be answered honestly in the safety of solitude. Use solitude for planning. What matters most to you? What are your real priorities? What kind of person do you want to become? These deeper questions require the quiet clarity that only comes in solitude. Use solitude for restoration. Let your mind rest. Let your emotions settle. Let your nervous system calm. Think of solitude as charging your internal battery so you can show up fully for others and for life. Solitude is not an indulgence. It is a necessity. It is not selfish. It is generous. When you take time to know yourself, understand yourself, and restore yourself, you become a better partner, parent, friend, colleague, and citizen. You bring depth instead of surface, authenticity instead of performance, presence instead of distraction. Today, schedule time for solitude. Protect it as you would protect any important appointment. Use it to reconnect with yourself, process your experiences, and prepare for your next interactions. Make friends with your own company. Remember, the person who can be peacefully alone will never be truly lonely. The person who can find strength in solitude will never be truly weak. The person who can enjoy their own company will always have good company available. Solitude is not absence, it is presence. It is not emptiness, it is fullness. It is not weakness, it is strength. Learn to treasure it, learn to use it, learn to find in it everything you need to live with unshakable inner peace. When the world spins, you will not. When others panic, you will breathe. When chaos erupts around you, you will remain centered within you. This is not because you are unaffected by difficulty. It is because you have learned to be unshaken by difficulty. You have become the calm in the chaos. This is the ultimate test of inner peace, not how you feel when everything is going well, but how you respond when everything is going wrong. Not your state during easy times, but your stability during difficult times. Not your peace in perfect conditions, but your presence under pressure. Marcus Aurelius faced chaos that would overwhelm most people. Plague, war, betrayal, natural disasters, economic collapse. Yet historical accounts describe him as consistently calm, rational, and decisive under pressure. He had learned to be the eye of the storm, the still center around which chaos could swirl without disturbing his inner equilibrium. This is not a natural state. This is a developed skill. No one is born calm under pressure. Everyone learns reactivity first, but some people, the wise ones, choose to unlearn reactivity and learn responsiveness instead. They choose to develop the ability to remain centered. When life becomes uncentered, the secret is this: chaos exists only outside you. Inside you is space. Inside you is stillness. Inside you is the observer who can watch chaos without being consumed by chaos, who can experience difficulty without being overwhelmed by difficulty, who can witness drama without becoming dramatic. But most people live from their circumstances instead of from their center. When external conditions are peaceful, they feel peaceful. When external conditions are chaotic, they feel chaotic. They are emotional thermometers, constantly adjusting their internal temperature to match their external environment. You can choose differently. You can learn to generate your own internal weather regardless of external conditions. You can develop the ability to remain calm when others are agitated, clear when others are confused, present when others are scattered. This begins with the recognition that you are not your circumstances. You are the consciousness that experiences circumstances. You are not the chaos around you. You are the awareness that observes chaos around you. You are not the storm. You are the stillness that witnesses the storm. When crisis hits, most people immediately react emotionally. They let the intensity of external events create intensity in their internal state. They match chaos with chaos, urgency with urgency, drama with drama. But this reactive approach makes everything worse while solving nothing. Instead, practice. Becoming more still as external conditions become more chaotic. Practice breathing deeper as others breathe shallower. Practice thinking clearer as others think less clearly. Practice moving slower as others move faster. Become the opposite of the energy around you. This is not indifference. This is influence. When you remain calm under pressure, you influence others to become calmer. When you respond thoughtfully to chaos, you model thoughtfulness for others. When you embody peace in the presence of panic, you offer others a different way of being. The calm person in a crisis becomes the natural leader, not because they demand attention, but because they command respect. Not because they shout loudest, but because they think clearest. Not because they react fastest, but because they respond wisest. But let me ask you this. How do you typically respond to chaos? Do you add to the chaos or do you calm the chaos? Do you become part of the problem or part of the solution? Do you amplify the drama or do you dissolve the drama? Practice remaining centered in small chaos so you can remain centered in large chaos. When traffic is heavy, practice patience instead of frustration. When technology fails, practice acceptance instead of anger. When plans change suddenly, practice adaptability instead of resistance. Each small moment of remaining calm under pressure builds your capacity for remaining calm under greater pressure. Each choice to respond rather than react strengthens your ability to be the calm in the chaos. Each decision to breathe instead of panic develops your skill at generating internal peace regardless of external circumstances. Use your breath as your anchor to calm. When chaos erupts, return to your breathing. Let it be slow, deep, conscious. Let it remind you that you are safe in this moment, that you can handle whatever is actually happening right now, that you have the resources to respond skillfully to any situation. Use your body as your foundation for stillness. When others are agitated, notice your posture. Stand tall, relax your shoulders, soften your face. Let your physical stillness create emotional stillness. Let your external calm generate internal calm. Use your voice as your contribution to peace. When others are speaking loudly, speak quietly. When others are speaking quickly, speak slowly. When others are speaking reactively, speak thoughtfully. Let your voice be the voice of reason in unreasonable moments. Remember that in any chaotic situation, someone must be the calm. Someone must be the center. Someone must be the stable presence that others can orient toward. Why not you? Why not choose to be the person who brings peace instead of panic, clarity instead of confusion, presence instead of reactivity? Today, practice becoming the calm in whatever small chaos you encounter. Notice your tendency to match the energy around you. Choose instead to generate the energy you want to see around you. Be the stillness others need. Be the peace others seek. Be the calm in the chaos. This is how you transform not only your own experience, but the experience of everyone around you. This is how you become a force for peace in a chaotic world. This is how you embody unshakable inner peace regardless of external circumstances. When the world spins, you will not. Because you have learned to be the calm in the chaos, the stillness in the storm, the peace in the panic. And from that centered place you can respond to anything with wisdom, clarity, and grace. Peace is not a one-time event. It is a habit, a choice, a daily practice. In this final chapter, we challenge you to live it fully and lead by example. Because the world needs people who have found unshakable inner peace, and you can be one of them. You have learned the principles. You understand the practices. You know the path. But knowing is not enough. Understanding is not sufficient. The path to unshakable inner peace is walked one step at a time, one choice at a time, one moment at a time. And it must be walked every day for the rest of your life. This is not because peace is fragile. It is because life is dynamic. Every day brings new challenges that test your commitment to peace. Every moment offers new opportunities to choose peace or choose chaos. Every interaction presents new chances to respond from your center or react from your circumstances. Marcus Aurelius understood this completely. Even after years of philosophical study and disciplined practice, he continued to remind himself daily of the principles of inner peace. His meditations are not the writings of someone who had achieved permanent peace. They are the writings of someone who chose peace again and again, day after day, moment after moment. This is the nature of all profound human development. You do not graduate from the need for conscious choice. You do not achieve a level where peace becomes automatic. You do not reach a point where you no longer need to practice the principles you have learned. The path of inner peace is a path you walk for life. But this is not a burden, it is a privilege. Every moment you choose peace over panic, you strengthen your capacity for peace. Every time you choose response over reaction, you deepen your wisdom. Every day you choose presence. Over distraction, you expand your ability to live fully. The choice for peace is available in every moment. When someone cuts you off in traffic, you can choose peace or choose anger. When your plans fall through, you can choose peace or choose frustration. When someone criticizes you, you can choose peace or choose defensiveness. When unexpected challenges arise, you can choose peace or choose panic. Each choice matters. Each decision shapes you. Each moment of choosing peace makes the next choice for peace easier. Each time you respond from your center makes it more natural to respond from your center. Each practice of presence makes presence more accessible. But here's what most people don't understand. Choosing peace is not just about your own well-being. It is about your contribution to the world. Every person who finds unshakable inner peace becomes a force for peace in their relationships, their community, their sphere of influence. Peace is contagious. Calm is transferable. Presence is inspiring. When you embody peace, you give others permission to be peaceful. When you remain calm under pressure, you show others that calm is possible under pressure. When you respond thoughtfully to chaos, you demonstrate that thoughtfulness is available even in chaos. You become a living example of what is possible. The world needs this example. The world needs people who have found the secret of unshakable inner peace and are willing to live it openly. Not perfect people, peaceful people. Not people who never face difficulty, people who remain centered in difficulty. Not people who never feel disturbed, people who return quickly to peace when disturbance arises. This is your opportunity and your responsibility. You have been given tools that can transform not only your own life, but the lives of everyone around you. You have learned principles that can bring peace to relationships, families, communities, and organizations. You have discovered practices that can create islands of sanity in an insane world. But let me ask you this: will you use what you have learned? Will you practice what you now understand? Will you choose peace not just when it is easy, but especially when it is difficult? Will you become the person who brings calm to chaos, clarity to confusion, presence to panic? This is not about perfection. You will forget these principles sometimes. You will react instead of respond. You will get pulled into drama. You will lose your center. This is human and normal and expected. The key is not to avoid all mistakes. The key is to return quickly to peace when you notice you have lost it. Peace is not a destination you arrive at once. Peace is a direction you choose repeatedly. It is not an achievement you earn permanently. It is a practice you maintain consistently. It is not a state you reach finally. It is a choice you make continually. Today marks the beginning of your practice, not the end of your learning. Today you commit to choosing peace again and again, moment by moment, situation by situation, challenge by challenge. Today, you begin living as someone who has found unshakable inner peace. Remember everything you have learned. The war within you can end. The enemy is reaction, not reality. You cannot control the world, but you can master yourself, your judgments. Create your suffering. Stillness is stronger than stimulation. Emotions are guests, not rulers. Your breath is your anchor. The pause is your power. Detachment is liberation. The present moment is your home. Acceptance is strength. Resistance wastes energy. Your inner dialogue shapes your reality. Routine protects your peace. Solitude restores your soul. Care wisely about what matters. Be the calm in chaos. Most importantly, remember this. You already have what it takes. You always have had what it takes. The peace you seek is not somewhere else. It is within you. The strength you need is not outside you. It is inside you. The wisdom you desire is not hidden from you. It is available to you. Choose peace. Choose it now. Choose it again in the next challenging moment. Choose it tomorrow when difficulties arise. Choose it next week when chaos erupts. Choose it for the rest of your life, one moment at a time, one breath at a time, one choice at a time. The world is waiting for people who have found unshakable inner peace. The world needs your calm, your clarity, your presence. Be the peace you wish to see. Live the principles you have learned. Embody the wisdom you have gained. You already have what it takes. Now go prove it. If this message spoke to you, subscribe. For more powerful mindset content, let us know in the comments what part hit you the hardest. Your journey to unshakable inner peace begins now. Choose peace again and again and again.